Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 14th, 2016. And this is Before the First Cup of Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Thursday, everyone. It is a balmy 81 degrees and sunny here in upstate New York. We got some rain last night, and I think they're predicting some thunderstorms today. So where do we leave off yesterday? I can't even believe it's already halfway through the month of July. The summer is whizzing by pretty fast. We titled the show Face Scanning Police Cars, Brain Reading, and Replacing Memories. And it's very similar to what we titled the show the day before that, which was Behavior Monitoring, AI Algorithms, Internet of Things, and Spying on Your Brains. But, you know, we have been kind of delving into this whole evil plan to get inside the little voices in your head, figure out what they're saying, and then change your memories, change your thoughts, find traumatic things and wipe them away free and clear, because little Johnny had a bad childhood that made his genes defective. So don't worry about it. We'll fix all that. We found right at the end of the show that they actually not only can wipe away memories. We looked at Yale University working on being able to not only read your thoughts and take your little voice in your head and spit it out text to speech, which is beyond lunacy. They're also able to extract images. It's things you're thinking about. And there's absolutely no bastion of freedom left anymore. But we saw it at the end of the show that they are now working in Belgium and Germany and being able to literally flip genetic switches to make memories go away. And what's even more interesting, and you know, I'd have to find this story because it was probably, I'd say a good 3, 4, 5 months ago, but I've been reading a story about children's brain plasticity. And of course, as you get older, you know, you get set in your ways. So it's very difficult once you've been taught bad habits to untrain those bad habits. But they had been finding that the brain is a lot more plastic than they thought, that they've been able, with different therapies, I don't remember if this involved some sort of transcranial stimulation. It was one of the mad science gone mad lunatic experiments they've been doing, but they were able to go in to adult brains and retool that brain to fix, and this is the way they said it, to fix damage done to the personality through traumatic interactions or experiences as a child that maybe caused a serial killer later on down the line because they had such a horrible childhood. No. When I think back to movies such as Minority Report, and I hate using science fiction to point to go, you know, some of the stuff we're talking about to point and go, oh, look, they talked about it in the movies, because I find that annoying. Just because they talked about it in the movies doesn't mean anything, but we found time and time again that there is a lot of foreshadowing. They use popular media to help groom you for the future. I think one of the reasons our whole generation that is, I'd say probably between our 30s, 40s, and 50s right now, are in the mindset that we are for sci-fi is because of what was on TV and television back in the 70s and the 80s. They taught us to embrace that stuff. They taught us to embrace the machine. Computers are smart. Computers are going to do it all, and we're going to have this wonderful, wonderful future of Buck Rogers, and all the guys would have an Aaron Gray of their own. The woman would have, I'm trying to remember his name, not Gil Pratt. He's with DARPA. Actually, now with Toyota's AI division, Uh, I don't remember his name, Gil something. The guy who played Buck Rogers in the TV series. But you know, it was all everyone had their own personal robot, and he had the cute little guy that went. Blah, 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 blah. It was his buddy, and they had white walls and white outfits, and everyone was good looking. Probably running around having a good time once off camera. You know what? That's the future they tried to sell us. But I've said before, we opened that door at the end of the hall, and it got real scary and dark. And it's not a good place anymore. So, anyway, now we can get into your head. Let's get to where we didn't finish yesterday because I want to continue on. We've looked at the brain. We've looked at manipulation of the brain, man. Science gone mad. Now we're going to take this into some AI. Pretty frightening stories about AI and the understandings of the brain here. So they've been able to put electrodes into the brain. Yale's teamed up with UC Berkeley. And they have literally been able to extract images as well as that little voice in your head. And now they're typing it out into words, and they want to then take it text to speech so it'll be able to speak the little voice in your head. So every little last dribble of freedom you had will be sucked away from you. Remember, too, we were looking at Google and Facebook and Verizon and NASA and DARPA all getting into the game launching these drones. Facebook and Google want to do this ubiquitous 5G internet all over the world in every nook and cranny. So every nook and cranny of the planet will be accessible to the machine. There will be nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. You won't be able to go hide in a fruit bat tree in Africa because they're going to have internet. So little Jing Pao, who found that infected Ebola fruit bat in that tree, could have taken a picture and posted it on Facebook. Damn. You know, they did. They said they found that tree, found the fruit bat tree. It was infected. They cut it down now. That Facebook internet that they're going to be launching, I don't remember if Facebook, Google had the drones. So I don't remember if Facebook had balloons or maybe they had solar drones. I don't know. But they were all doing it. But Facebook wanted to make it a Facebook portal. So if you got their free internet, you had to have a Facebook account. Now, why would that be? Why would that be? Well, as we're being bagged and tagged, spliced and diced in the database with our dossier getting built, you know, Facebook is the best repository ever for not only being able to track your cat pictures and do facial recognition. We talked about Google and Facebook and the FBI with their facial recognition programs, and the Chinese police force with their facial recognition cars. But they're also able to have your friends list, right? That's where they kind of start with that new database for being able. DARPA Dan had it. And I know that that's rolled out now. He was talking about how to track people involved in child porn rings. Because it's all about the children. But they have this new software now. They built at DARPA that they can take you and all of your connections and within an instant be able to find your entire sphere of influence just by things such as your social media accounts. And then, you know, every time now we have some quote-unquote internet radicalized domestic terrorist here in the United States, what's the first thing they do? Oh, they go to their Facebook page and see what kind of things they were posting right before the incident or even during when the incident was happening. See if they can find any clues. But there's another thing that happens with social media accounts that, of course, have you attached with that dangling dopamine carrot. They give up your routine. You know, we've been talking about behavioral analytics And this is kind of the next big thing in the Internet of Things as we all get sucked into that machine. And behavioral analytics starts to come up with a base pattern for you on a daily basis. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm a creature of habit. And especially as we get older, we tend to become more and more predictable. We stick around in our own sphere of influence and we do our things at a certain time. I personally have always been a very busy and active person and all the things I try to get done on a daily basis. But the only way to do that, I discovered long ago, is to have a schedule. If you don't have a schedule, as soon as my schedule gets out of whack, I get cranky because it throws everything spinning. Woo! It just makes my day miserable. So I have a schedule, and I try to stick to that schedule. I mean, it's a big occasion when I go off the rails, and I think that's been part of my problem for a while. I was staying up really late, and my schedule used to be go to bed by midnight and get up then by 7:30, 8:30, 9:30 at the latest. But I'm trying to get back there because I feel so much better when I get to bed before 12. But, we're creatures of habit. And as they start mapping our behaviors, and as they start understanding the secrets of the mind, and, as they're going to make us go in for now our mind print, because that'll be the new biometric, will be the mind print. We read a story. Maybe we didn't read it the other day, but we've talked about it, and I know I read it when it first came out, but talking about how your brain print is actually as individualistic as your fingerprint, and someday will be used for a new type of biometric ID. So, eventually we'll have to go in and get our brain print, and while they're brain printing us, they'll be able to crack some little secrets in your brain, maybe take a little read. Maybe, who knows, with some of this new technology, I was reading how weird it was that I was just talking about the 5G internet, freebie internet to get the rest of the corners of the world that aren't covered from Google and Microsoft. The FCC had to approve that. We talked about the FCC application from Google that was all redacted, and I was saying there was terahertz, millimeter wave type radiation that they were messing around with. Well, story came out yesterday, as a matter of fact, that and I had to, oh, damn it, I don't know if I actually posted it because I ran out of room for doing notes. I had way too many links, so I had to get rid of something. And since I didn't talk about this particular story right then and there yesterday, I took it out. But just yesterday, after I got off the show, and it looks like they updated it at 6:45 p.m. yesterday evening. This came out yesterday morning to begin with. The FCC is about to give 5G wireless a big fat push, and that is working in the 5 gigahertz range. But what we didn't talk about was the damage that some of these frequencies can do. And I think maybe Monday we'll get to some of these frequencies. But as they become ubiquitous everywhere, and I mean, we're already awash in all these different frequencies that we can't see, but just because we can't see them, doesn't mean it's not doing damage. Just because you can't see a virus or a bacteria doesn't mean it's not having an influence on you. Just because you can't see ultraviolet light doesn't mean it's not frying your skin. But the FCC is about ready to give approval to 5G, which is this new ubiquitous wireless on drones and balloons, the Loon Balloon and the Skybender project that Facebook and Google are about ready to give free. I don't know if it's all going to be free, but I know like in the third world nations, they just want them all to get into the Internet of Things. But as a part of this project, and this is where this comes in, I was talking about the terahertz millimeter wave. I mean, those are two names for the same thing. I kind of dug into what it was all about. And as a part of this 5G move, the FCC is about ready to open some additional bandwidth. And this is this high spectrum band, specifically in the 28 gigahertz, 37, and 39 gigahertz bands. They also had some other, and those would be for licensed use. They had some other bands which were between the 64 to 71 gigahertz that are unlicensed. And we're going to look at some of that because that's where I was finding that this terahertz millimeter wave radiation can be used. The military is already using it. They use it for mapping radar applications. And I thought I had read about this before. Remember the millimeter wave scanners? I think it was that, I don't remember his name, the 9/11 guy. The Homeland Security 9/11 guy that when he left the Bush administration started his own security company and started selling those naked body scanners to the airport. Yeah, well, some of those were millimeter wave. And what can millimeter wave do? Well, they can see through walls and they can see through clothes. Yes. If they put some of that technology onto a satellite, let's say, or on a drone, we were talking about those HD Argus drones yesterday. We also discussed, we'll get into this as part of the story, but NASA and the military and Verizon, a lot of the tech companies partnering to build this new drone command and control center. It would be like air traffic control for commercialized drones. Department of Defense is building their big new high-tech space surveillance system. So all they got to do now is they open up some of these new bands to millimeter wave. They'll be able to literally not only read your thoughts, right? This is something they're already working on. But now, with millimeter wave radar, especially being legal, so they'll open it up to Google's and Facebook's, they'll be able to look right through your roof. Like literally right through your roof and see what's going on inside your house. And I know they can already do that through walls. We looked probably a year or so ago about a technology as they're driving by on the street. They can literally look through walls, but they'll be able, with clarity, to see from large distances what's going on from above, regardless of whether or not it's hidden. So remember yesterday I said the only safe place is going to be inside the walls in the basement. I don't even think it's going to be that anymore. I don't know what the penetration rate is. I'll have to dig into that. But it sure looked like it was quite invasive. So, all right, I kind of got off the topic here. Let's get back to this brain reading little voices and making them talk in your head. So UC Berkeley has also been pulled into this party by Yale, and they're working together, being able to read your thoughts and turn them into voices. There's questioning of the motives. Today's typical brain scans already have the ability to create rudimentary pictures of what we are thinking or feeling, but this new machine is light years ahead. Recently, scientists were able to successfully translate and play back a word that their subject simply thought. What? Yes. Their subject just thought about a word, and they were able to play that word back by monitoring their brain activity. Furthermore, the device, which has no name at the moment, can actually view images that are stored deep inside your memory banks. So, you know, that friend of yours that you don't want to give up, that you are not going to see something, say something. Well, Johnny, you know, we don't have to waterboard anymore. We just put you onto our brain-sucking device. And you're not going to be able to hide those secrets. While that might sound kind of amazing to some, it still begs the question as to what purpose of such a machine might this be for the American future? Well, that's a good question now, isn't it? As the envelope of neurotelepathy gets continually pushed, our privacy is being incessantly challenged. We read about the day before yesterday, two technologies coming out of Israel. One was to read your emotions, and the other one was to utilize your facial structure and the genetics behind it to determine whether or not in the future you could potentially be a criminal. Pre-crime is here. So now all they got to do, screw the lie detector test. Let's put Johnny into this brain-sucking machine, and we'll figure out what he's really thinking. Yeah, I think they'd be afraid to get in my brain because I don't have a filter, at least not inside. Don't get alcohol into me because then the filter goes away in my mouth. But at least when I don't have alcohol, that filter stays between the brain and the mouth. But in my brain, there is no filter. Still, most innovations with the potential to invade our privacy come wrapped in a nice humanitarian cover story. Of course they do. Of course, it's all about curing you. Helping Nana and little Johnny who didn't get his vaccine. The Daily Mail reports that this machine is being developed to help Lou Gehrig's disease sufferers, as well as Alzheimer's patients, stroke, and dementia patients. And the LA Times is unabashedly claiming that this mind-reading machine is being produced for the purposes of investigations involving facial reconstruction. So I guess technology is going to put the police sketch artists out of jobs as well. And don't forget, the machines are coming to take all of our jobs, and that'll be another one on the list of out the window. The final verdict? Well, whatever the case, the agreed upon goal is to communicate a person's private thoughts via a video screen, electronic speaker, word processor, and rest assured, this is only the beginning of the end of our Fifth Amendment, which outlines our right to remain silent. If you think this sounds like science fiction or a plot in the Minority Report, and I would sure say so, you should know that there are already devices that can read your facial expressions or emotions in order to prevent car accidents and road rage. And we talked about that yesterday. That road rage camera has been around for a year or two, where it literally, and I mean, they've already been teaching AI to detect emotions. That Kismet was the first emotional robot that they built at MIT back, I think I still might have been in college, maybe just out, but they've already been trying to make not only robots be able to show emotion with facial expressions, but then be able to read emotion. So this it's almost like a dash cam for their thinking self-driving cars of the future will be able to detect furrowed brows and tip-offs to show that you are angry. So that self-driving car will be able to keep you safe and take over because you're showing that you're getting a little bit of road rage there, Johnny. We're just going to take it off your plate until you relax and calm down. Psh. Here, let's push a little button and release some dopamine or some oxytocin. Moreover, it was reported back in 2008 that Homeland Security would be able to detect terrorist activity by monitoring the intent of American citizens. They're already doing that. That is why social media is being surveilled 24/7. That is why the dangling dopamine carrot is so important to them, because you're addicted. For those of you who don't have Facebook accounts, don't get them. For those of you that have them, start fucking with their behavioral algorithm. You know what? If you used to post every day at 9 o'clock, stop it. If you used to post once a day, stop it. If you used to post stuff talking about police brutality, start posting stuff at odd hours about fuzzy little kitty cats. And mess with their algorithm. I've actually been working on that. Sure is confusing some of my friends. Stir it up and mess with the algorithm. Don't give them any information that they'll be able to turn around and build a dossier about you and come to conclusions that may not even be true. You know, I know people who can look very scary on the outside, but inside they're a big pushy marshmallow. It's just that scary exterior that's used as a defense mechanism. People can talk and say things, doesn't mean that they're going to translate into actions. Just because you type a boisterous comment on Facebook means you're a keyboard warrior. It doesn't mean anything else. Doesn't mean you're going to go do a shoot 'em up or a attack on anything. Doesn't mean you're going to go beat someone up in the bathroom. It just means that's you're a keyboard warrior. But if you keep feeding them stuff like that, well, you're going to be on that list, that special list, where the next time you get pulled over, you're going to have a red line at the top of your law enforcement dossier where they assess you before they ever get. People now are like, oh my God, they got so much information about me. Well, I've tried very hard, and there's probably 2 pictures out there of me now, but I've tried very, 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 very hard. Just being cognizant from being in the industry. Not to ever put pictures of myself out there because, surprise, go to Google, plug your name in. You might be amazed at some of the stuff that comes up. Not everybody, but some people absolutely. And there'll be pictures out there that you probably didn't want shared, at least not in a public search engine. All right, anyway, let's finish the last sentence of the story about reading your thoughts. In short, we might be soon incriminating ourselves without even trying, like I said. And it will seem acceptable under the guise of freedom, justice, safety, and medicine. And this whole new generation that is coming into age right now has been taught from day one to give it up. Give it up to the internet because that's fun. That's how we interact. We don't have real friends anymore. We give our life story to strangers and we post it all on the internet for everyone to see. So that's how things go now. That's how we make friends. That's how we interact. And if you put stuff on the internet that goes viral, oh, you could be famous someday. That's the dangling carrot of being famous. Now, we read a couple stories right at the end of the show about implanting memories. So not just reading, but implanting. And we found out that they are still messing around with those flashes of light using the genetically modified brain cells where they will actually react to optical stimulation with laser. Well, there's another story then that we found that now they can flip switches and genetically modify your memories just by flipping a few genes. And I wanted to finish that story. It says, we were amazed to find that deactivating one single gene associative memories formed before or during the learning trials. And switching off this gene has an impact on the behavior of the mice because it interferes with the communication between the brain cells. But by measuring the electrical signals in the brain, they have discovered clear deficits in the cellular mechanism used to store memories, and these changes are even visible at the level of individual brain cells. They were able to show this is basic research, but we will need more into the brain and the roles of learning. It says to explore further and look at manipulation with light. Guys, our brain, that last bastion of freedom that made you who you are, is about ready to go out a window. Ray Kurzweil talking about uploading and downloading Nana to the cloud once she's gone into her new avatar. It's not going to be a fantasy. Minority Report with crime prediction, thought crime, is no longer going to be something of science fiction. You will not be able to think bad thoughts or you will be re-educated. We laughed about those education camps. They had those civilian internee manuals out from the federal government a couple years back, and it gave complete details on how they were going to intern you and exactly where your serial number was going to be on your orange jumpsuit, how they were going to vaccinate you because herd immunity is important, and how they're going to tamp down on the bad people that they're trying to get onto their team. Well, you have something like this, it's not even going to hurt. We're just going to put this little cap on you, get you to play a video game. I really think that's what it's going to be. Those wireless keyboard, mice, drone flying things that can already read your brainwaves. Put this on, Johnny. Looks real cool, too. And while they're doing that and you're playing that game and they're watching you make decisions, they're also reading the little voices in your head as you're trying to figure out where the best exit is to make a quick getaway. And then come the drugs. Then come the flashes of light. Bloop! Clockwork Orange. That are going to get rid of those traumatic bad memories of being captured by the people you've been trying to get away from. I just don't even see how this is possible, that we are at this point where we literally would have to worry about, like, science fiction from your worst dreams ever actually being a tool of potential future law enforcement. All right, well, don't worry about that, because when will computers have common sense? That's one thing we've been waiting for, to be able to talk to our little buddy, the AI friend Buck Rogers had. Well, just ask Facebook. This is what Scientific American says. Facebook is well known for its early and increased use of artificial intelligence. And don't forget, Facebook, Google, and all the rest of them, Microsoft, are working fast and furious to be able to get some deep learning on all that data they're collecting. And the social media site uses AI to pinpoint its billion-plus users' individual interests and tailored content accordingly by automatically scanning their news feeds, identifying people and photos, and targeting them with precision ads. And yeah, Facebook is pretty good at that. I've turned all that ad stuff off, and they're still target adding me with stuff I've talked about in conversations with my friends. So, I don't think it matters if it's on or off. I just don't talk about anything bloody. Don't talk about anything or word it in any way that makes you sound bad. I mean, I hate having to edit myself, because when I talk, at least when I'm in person, I don't edit myself. It's like pre-editing now. Because you don't want to sound like you're a bad person. Like I said, most of the time, everything's innocuous. And just by talking about things, talking through things, or thinking about things, that is the sandbox to determine what's a good and a bad decision. That doesn't mean you're a criminal. That just means that you have thought skills, that you can work through a problem, which seems to be lacking in society today. They stand there helpless and go, oh, I don't know. And now, so anyway, your ability to think is going to give you away as a thought criminal. And now behind the scenes, the social networks, AI researchers are trying to take this technology to the next level. This is Facebook, and from pure data crunching logic to a nuanced form of common sense rivaling that of humans. And I just saw, right before I went to bed, I don't know if it was Gawker or The Verge, one of them, IO9 maybe, had a behind-the-scenes look at Facebook's new AI data center. It looked pretty beefy. It says AI already lets machines do things like recognize faces and act as virtual assistants that can track down info on the web for smartphone users. So yes, but just wait, there's more. To perform these basic tasks that underlie these learning algorithms rely on computer programs written by humans to feed themselves massive amounts of training data known as machine learning. And that's where Google was using YouTube videos on how-tos to teach their deep learning machine. But for machines to have truly common sense, and that is to be able to figure out how the world works and then make reasonable decisions based upon that knowledge. And here we go, machines thinking for themselves. They will and must be able to teach themselves without human supervision. And we read about some of that at MIT, remember? Where we had robots teaching themselves and learning tasks overnight. And then we had other robots who they'd set upon building the next generation of robot, and they found that those mama robots were building features that they learned about that made their offspring better into their offspring. They were literally evolving themselves. It says that though machine learning without human supervision will not happen on a significant scale anytime soon. And of course, they keep telling you that. Don't worry about it, Johnny. It's 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line. No, it's not. Just don't be afraid. That's what they don't. They want to be able to just unveil it. Whoop, look at what we got the second it happens. But don't worry about it. Researchers are taking steps in that direction. In a blog posted on Monday, Facebook director of AI, Jan LeCun, and research engineer Sumit Chinchala describe efforts at an unsupervised machine learning through a technique called adversarial training. This approach consists of two artificial neural networks, so-called because they use algorithms designed to help them function like a human brain. And we read about some of this new stuff that they're doing using these little DNA nanostrands to make synapses and get them to work just like a human brain. Yes, the good old brain project funded with taxpayer dollars is coming home to roost. And this generator network creates images based on random data that it is fed, and the researchers train the second neural network through machine learning to be able to tell the difference between real images and a data file containing nonsensical patterns of shapes and colors. This discriminator then analyzes a series of files from a database of real images and others created by the generator network. And initially, the AI is not very good at creating realistic images or discriminating fakes. But eventually, however, it's supposed to learn from the discriminator's responses and begin to produce increasingly more realistic images. Well, these adversarial network generators tested up till now in the AI labs at Facebook and elsewhere typically have shown poor improvement even after interacting. And in an attempt to remedy this, Facebook researchers created generators that have specifically crafted structures known to the AI community as deep convolutional generative adversarial networks. And each of these layers consists of particular algorithms applied to input that the network gets. And we looked at this. This was some of what Microsoft was working on as well. It's called deep learning, where they literally are mimicking how the human brain works on multiple layers, where one layer will figure one little piece out and then pass it down to the next layer for deeper dissection and putting together more dots to then come to a conclusion. Of course, once they work all the kinks out, these new abilities can enhance Facebook's ability to engage users, use common sense. And the site has also developed some software that essentially allow them to make educated guesses. And if we know how to build dialogue systems that have an idea of what a person wants or thinks, ding, it means that we'll have a chatbot that's actually useful and interactive with you in a natural way. Just what we need. Interactive assistance. Remember, SLC Mike had given us a TED Talk a long time ago that talked about augmented assistance. I don't remember what they called it. Some sort of augmented digital assistant. Where right now we have them on our phones. There's Cortana or Siri. Amazon's got their Alexa. I guess Google's got one as well called Google Assistant. These are these chatbots. But in the future, these are literally going to be some sort of implantable chip. You know, they have those contact lenses now that go into your eye and are right there next to that optic nerve, right next to the orbital frontal cortex where your decisions are made. I have a feeling that they'll be able to pay attention to what goes on in that decision-making section of the brain. But in the future, we got all these biological brain implants that they are working on, 3D printing, DNA material. It's all going to be in the name of curing mental disease. But eventually, it'll give them the ability to know exactly where to implant it to augment you or your children. And when you're born in the future, you're going to have that little digital assistant implanted because, you know what? That's the only way little Johnny is going to be able to compete in school globally because everyone else is getting it. But it'll be able to follow you from when you're born and be able to capture everything that you see from the first day you were alive and be your best friend in your head. It'll give you computing power like you've never imagined and connect you to the cloud. So we could do swarm learning and things of that nature as well. We've already seen some of that at MIT. So there's a long, long way to go for these digital assistants, but the belief that exploring better unsupervised learning algorithms is a crucial key toward human-level AI. And guys, once we get to human-level AI, why do we need humans anymore? What's the point? We are defective. They'll be augmenting us to make us better and to quote-unquote fix us because they've gotten better at diagnosing mental disease. We saw that there was that AI Cures, which is still a smartphone app that's going to require you to take pictures and show your doctor you took your medicine. It'll report suspicious behavior, like if it caught you sticking your pill into the side of your mouth, Johnny, that's special medication to keep you from being dangerous. But we also found that they are able to diagnose quote-unquote mental disease just by the way you speak. And here's a brand new story. Machine learning algorithm spots depression in your speech patterns. Yes. So as we have microphones open now, per user agreement in applications you've downloaded on your cell phone, just by using things like Gmail on your computer, because that's how they want to advertise to you. Oh, buying a Samsung television that has a microphone that warns you not to speak about things that you may want to keep private near the television because, you know, we're going to use that background noise to advertise to people in the room. Well, they now have a machine learning algorithm that spots depression in speech patterns. If I can scroll up here. Researchers at the University of Southern California have developed a new machine learning tool capable of detecting certain speech-related diagnostic criteria in patients being evaluated for depression. Known as SimSensei, the tool listens to the patient's voice during diagnostic interviews for reductions in vowel expression characteristics of psychological and neurological disorders that may not be sufficiently clear to human interviewers. The idea is, of course, not to replace those interviewers, wink, but to add additional objective weight to the diagnostic processes. Depression misdiagnosis is a huge problem in healthcare. Remember, those HIPAA laws are out of window now. Especially in the mental health field, particularly in cases which a primary care doctor is making or not making the diagnosis. 2009, a meta-study covering 50,000 patients found that doctors were correctly identifying depression only about half the time, with the number of false positives outnumbering false negatives by a ratio of 3-1. And that's false positive by a ratio of 3-1 that were then given antidepressants who didn't actually need it. But it's also understandable. Doctors, especially general practitioners, always overdiagnose an illness for two simple reasons. One, diagnosing an illness in error is almost not safer than not diagnosing an illness at all. And number two, eliminating with certainty the possibility of any single diagnosis requires more expertise. But a big part of the problem in diagnosing depression is that it's a heterogeneous disease and has many causes. So don't worry about it, because we're going to take care of this. The depression-related variation in speech tracked by SimSensei are already well documented. Prior investigations revealed that depressed patients often display flattened or negative effect, reduced speech variability, and monotonicity in loudness and pitch, reduced speech, reduced articulation, increased pause duration, and varied switching between pause and duration. Now, we talked about behavioral analytics, and this is just an extension of that. You know, your behavior as well, we saw in some other psychology application, that if they've been watching your behavior and you come online every morning at 9, check your Facebook first thing, and then you're checking your email, and then you go get your coffee, and all of a sudden you're not doing that. And they could tell, I mean, especially if you had your device on you. You might not carry your cell phone to get coffee, but if you had wearable computing, let's say, which is the future, as they can 3D print antennas and anything now, they'll be able to tell exactly where you are and where you walk. They can already tell where you drive. They have license plate scanners and surveillance cameras everywhere. If you start breaking your habits, that is a telltale sign that something is wrong, that something is out of place. Well, now all they need is your voice, and the result is that they not only can determine whether or not you're depressed based upon the vowel sounds you make, so they found even a more accurate way utilizing speech analysis, but then they can determine by how you cluster vowels with peaks of A, I, and U sounds, which is bizarro. But don't think that there aren't researchers who are looking at every tiny molecule of how to determine secrets inside of you that could end up being tells. You know, just like the good old poker player of the old days, everyone has a tell. If you're good at spotting liars, you'll be able to find tells. Everybody's got a tell in some way that tells whether or not they are normal or not, telling the truth or not. It says they will be able to use this to diagnose depression and PTSD, and they are going to be investigating conditions as well, such as schizophrenia and Parkinson's disease. So put on a seatbelt, people, because your voice, you won't even be able to talk anymore or think without somebody trying to come up with a label for you, to come up with a way that you may not be normal anymore. and then use 21st century medicine to come up with a way to cure you. Because that's what the 21st century is. It is the giving away of the human condition to the machine, allowing them to bag and tag you from every angle, come up with a diagnosis and a treatment to see what's going to happen, right? Step right up for that cohort program as part of the National Institute of Health and help make the future healthier for our children, right? Now, I was going to play a video, and of course, the second I rolled over Skype, it went into not responding mode. It's trying to come back. We're going to see here. Let's see. It's going to try, and I see my head. Hey, I think we might have it. All right. I can't hear it, so I'm hoping it's here. So I have a video. Now, we've been talking about just this race to the future. We seem to be getting ready to go off a cliff. We've talked about robots going to take all of our jobs at some point in the future and how they're just going to give us that universal basic income to keep us happy, us useless eaters. But remember, there's no free lunch. How we're going to pay back the machine is to be their guinea pigs, for them to all get rich, them to crack all of the secrets of biology so they can enslave it. And I think that, that $1,000 a month or whatever they were talking about giving every person on the planet when there are no more jobs, it's going to be a small price to pay for the elite to become gods and have dominion over every cell of life on this planet. Here we go. White House extols the benefits of replacing humans with robots. This was from July 6th, so just about a week ago, out of RT. We're going to see
lots of news reports about how robots will replace humans in every job in the future. And now it looks like the White House is gearing up to replace humans with robots too. The White House's Deputy Chief Technology Officer Ed Felton recently wrote a post on the White House blog explaining how excited they are about working with government agencies to integrate artificial intelligence, or AI, into their operations. The blog post is called Preparing for the Future. In it,
uh-oh. Seems like my technology is not preparing for the future. Hold on, it might be coming back.
A positive tone about how the White House is working to leverage AI for public good. He says AI could lead to a more effective government. He positively gushes about how great AI could be in the capacity of government. Felton writes that AI could actually help make everyday life better for Americans, even though it threatens to take over their jobs and thus their very livelihoods. He says AI can help build smarter cities. He says it can lead to better options for mental and physical health, social welfare, criminal justice, research and development, and environmental issues. He ends that particular section with the open-ended, and much more, meaning the White House will use AI however it damn well pleases. In the blog post, Felton also mentions some other government applications of AI that don't sound as benevolent as social welfare. He writes that AI presents tremendous opportunities across the federal government in privacy, security, regulation, and law. And that's where things get really scary. Because now it's not just about robots replacing our jobs. Now it's about robots being our overlords, making decisions on law enforcement. It's about robots being in charge of regulating and securing us. Of course, the White House sees this as a tremendous way to save money, too, since the federal government employs somewhere around 2 million people. So the White House not only sees lots of opportunity in replacing us with robots, it also thinks they'll be a great way to control us, too. Just another scary news story about robots. Let's face it, my fellow humans, the future no longer belongs to us. Tonight, let's talk about that.
And there you go. I mean, how insane is that? Yeah, the White House has jumped on board. So we've had all these executive actions and all these projects that they've launched, including the Brain Initiative, the Microbiome Initiative. And we're going to look, they now found beyond a shadow of a doubt direct connect between gut bacteria, your immune system, and your brain and how you think. But AI is being integrated into everything around us. We are being sucked into that AI machine. We're going to become nodes on that Internet of Things. And then we're going to be managed, bagged, and tagged by these supercomputers that think like humans. Here, last story, artificially intelligent lawyer Ross, which we talked about Ross, has been hired now by his very first official law firm. Baker and Holstedler has announced that they are employing IBM's AI Ross. I didn't know they had an AI Ross. What happened to Watson? To handle their bankruptcy practice, which at the moment consists of nearly 50 lawyers. And according to the CEO and co-founder, other firms have also signed on with Ross, and they will be making their announcement shortly. Ross, which is the world's first artificially intelligent attorney, built on IBM's cognitive computing platform, Watson. So it is Watson. It's Watson's little baby. Was designed to read and understand language, postulate hypotheses when asked questions, research, and then generate responses along with references and citations to back up its conclusions. Ross also learns from experience, gaining speed and knowledge the more you interact with it. And that's the point, guys. Don't feed the machine. The more you feed the machine, the smarter it gets. All right, make sure you stick around. Mr. Kevin Blanche is live. Up next, it is Thursday, so there's some new Chuck Cocelli this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. Live Game On at 7. This week's Playing the Woodshed at 8 and at 10.